Just because he didn't get into college, he went from being his mother's precious boy to something she despised. Even though he ranked dead last in the exams, his mother still insisted that he repeat the year. When Jim didn't respond, his mother even took away his meal ticket. Jim couldn't even be bothered to resist. He spent his days doing nothing, while his mother ran a clothing store, barely keeping the family afloat. She called the school, asking them to arrange a spot for him to repeat the year, but when they heard it was Jim, even the school leaders avoided him. Jim's life went nowhere, spending his days playing mind games with his mother over the TV, until one day a strange guest arrived at their house. Due to a house demolition, Grandpa was forced to stay at their house for a few days. Grandpa had a gloomy and cold expression. Jim quietly helped him pack, complaining about how heavy Grandpa's stuff was. Then the suitcase broke. Inside, it was packed full of old books. Grandpa was reading in the room, but the phone in the living room kept ringing. Jim didn't bother to pick it up. He just slept through it. Grandpa angrily pulled out the phone line and looked at Jim with a sad expression. The school wouldn't accept Jim. Private tutoring classes were too expensive. His mother had no choice but to give up on having Jim repeat the year. Just as Jim was happy about it, his mother threw a huge stack of test papers at him. She cut off the TV signal, taking away his last distraction. Helpless, he had no choice but to deal with the tests his mother had left for him. His mother checked his answers, only to find he hadn't gotten a single one correct. To get Grandpa to help tutor Jim, his mother dug out some tea leaves she'd been keeping for years and asked him to help Jim. But when Grandpa saw Jim's motto, even he couldn't help but feel helpless. That night, Grandpa's eyes hurt from reading, so he asked Jim to read to him, but Jim only managed to read a couple of lines before he completely ruined Grandpa's mood. Jim woke up from the sofa and saw the note Grandpa left for him. Grandpa had left him a book, The King of Chess, and put a dictionary under it, telling him to check new words before reading aloud. So Jim decided to go through the dictionary. That day, Grandpa asked Jim to read again. It was The King of Chess, but this time, as Jim read, a vivid image appeared in his mind. The detailed description pulled him in. He started to immerse himself in the book. Jim kept reading The King of Chess over and over. It seemed like he was beginning to understand the details Grandpa had mentioned. Seeing Grandpa was also writing, Jim didn't disturb him. Instead, he looked for other novels on the bookshelf. Grandpa, seeing Jim's growing interest, picked out another book for him. As Jim read more and more, he gradually began to have something to express. One day, while Jim was lost in writing, a boy knocked on the door. Jim's essay that he helped the boy write had won an award, so the boy asked Jim to help him write another one. Seeing the money involved, reluctantly agreed. His interest in reading grew stronger. After finishing one book, he'd ask Grandpa for a new one. When the doorbell rang again, Jim was surprised to see a crowd of kids outside. He had fallen in love with reading and writing. Grandpa saw Jim's notes and took them to read. He helped Jim correct the typos and pointed out the grammar mistakes. Jim was chatting with his childhood friend when his friend suddenly noticed how much Jim had grown. Every time Jim finished something, he left it for Grandpa to review. There were notes from the grandfather and grandson scattered all over the house. And gradually, Jim had fallen in love with writing.